Hello friends, welcome to my channel. So today we are going to discuss RBAC, that is role-based access control. Uh, why this is important? Why do we use RBAC in our Kubernetes cluster? Okay. So this is a very important topic as far as security is concerned. So that is the first level of defense system, you can say, that you can apply for your cluster. So basically, RBAC it stand for who will control and what he can control. Okay, and what action he can perform basically. So all these things you can define in the RBAC. So as the definition says, right, RBAC in Kubernetes is used to control who can access. So basically, who is authorized to access your system and on what resources. So what resources he can access, that also you can define. Okay, so who can access, what resources he can access, and what action they can perform on that particular resource. So there are three points. Okay, so basically you can control all these three things by using the RBAC. So you can limit the access. As you know, for security reason, I mean there is a least privilege access is followed, right? So you have to give the minimum access that is required to perform a job to any user. Uh, so the RBAC helps to set these things for you. Okay. So there are two kinds of RBACs. Okay. So one is role and cluster role. Okay. So basically the role. Okay, first let me describe you. So there is a role and then you have the binding, okay? Role binding. Okay. So you will create a role and then you will bind it to a particular user, okay? In role you will define what action he can perform on what resources he can perform, okay? And in role binding you can mention uh, who can perform that access, okay? Similarly, cluster role and cluster role binding. The only difference here is the role and role bindings. You can give access to a namespace only. Okay, so role and role binding are for namespace only. But if you want to give access to a whole cluster, right? Cluster wide resource access, if you want to give, you will have to use a cluster role. Okay, so that's why they have differentiate. So it will be easy, right? If you are giving a cluster role, then you know that okay, this is a cluster role that is different from the normal role. Okay, that only works for a namespace. So that's how it is distinguished. Okay, so these are the two things. Okay, so as I mentioned, so role and cluster role basically that tells you what actions are allowed. Okay, and a role and cluster role binding basically it tells who will get the permission. Okay, so let's start. Okay. So, as I already told you, I'm running in a Kubernetes cluster. Version is 1.13. I'm using a alias OC for kubectl. So instead of kubectl, I'm using OC as a shortcut. Okay. So right now we have two nodes cluster. Okay. So let's start. So I have created the YAML file already. Okay, just to save the time. So let's go to cat role.yaml file. Okay. So as you can see, this is the YAML file for the role. So as you can see, kind is role. Okay, API version is your RBAC authorization. So as I told, a role is for a specific namespace, right? So we are role, we can only allow the under the namespace. Okay, not the cluster role. So we are defining this role for dev namespace. Okay, and this is the name of the role. You can define anything. Okay, so why I gave the pod reader, because I will be allowing only the read access, okay, to this with this role, and where I will define the rules. So these are the rules. So these are the API groups. Okay, so it is taking all the API groups basically, and after that resources. So I can define the resources for which resource. Okay, I can give the access. If you remember the definition, what resources, right? So we can define individual resources as well. So right now I'm defining only for pods. If you, if you want to allow all the resources, then you have to put a star here. Okay. So right now I'm giving access to only for the pods. Okay. So if you see some of the API group resources, these are the API group resources. Okay. Pod services config map secrets. So these are all resources that we use in Kubernetes, right? So you can define individual as well by a comma here. So all these pods and these API groups, right? These resources, okay, this comes under the core group. So that's why there is a blank. Okay. So core blank, core API groups are written like this only. So these are our core API group resources. So that comes under the core group. Okay, so the verbs, these are the action that will be allowed. So as you can see, get, watch, and list. Okay, these actions are allowed for this role. Okay, so this pod reader role. Okay, now let me clear this. Okay, now how will I am binding this? Okay, so that is a role that defines what action can be performed. Now I need to define which user can perform that action, right? So I'm binding that permission to a particular user. So for that I need to use a role binding. So this is a role binding YAML file. Okay. So all this from where I got this YAML file, right? I already told you that there is a Kubernetes document page, right? So you can go there and basically check all these YAML files over there. Okay. If you need these YAML files, you can pick me in chat, then I will paste it in the description. Okay. So as you can see, this is the name given for this role binding, right? Namespace, as we mentioned, role and role binding are for a specific namespace. So this is for dev namespace, and this is the subject. Kind is user. Okay, so we are defining here users. Name is dev user. So this is the user uh, which will be allowed to list the pods under the dev namespace. Okay, so this is the group RBAC authorization, and how you will come to know which role, which permission are allowed, right? So we will define under the role reference. So you can see the kind is role and the name is pod reader. Okay, so if you remember the our role YAML, right? So we have given the pod reader name, right? So we are using the same name. So this is how this role binding will come to know. Okay, I have to get the permission from this role. Okay, and again the group is RBAC authorization. Okay, so let's create a role. Okay, okay, sorry, let's create the role first. Okay, I forgot to mention -f. Okay, role is created. OC get roles. Okay, so once I get OC get roles, right, I cannot see the resource. Why? Because I'm in checking in the default namespace. Okay, and role are namespace specific, right? So I need to check under the dev namespace. Okay, so you can see the pod reader role is created. Okay, so we can describe this role pod reader hyphen and dev. Okay, so as you can see, um, it is allowing the resources only for pods. Okay, and it is allowing get, watch, and list. Okay, so if I want to check, okay, I only created the role, right? I haven't bind the users. Okay, so there is a command to check. Okay, so this is the command kubectl auth. This is I mean, without logging to the particular user, right? We can check via this command only. Okay. So the command says kubectl auth, can I authenticate? Okay. So I'm authenticating and then I am asking, can I do this? Can I get the pods? Okay. As dev user. Okay. So we are applying this role to the dev user hyphen and dev. Till now, we have created only the role. Okay. We haven't created the role binding. So right now this role is not mapped with this user. Okay. So it should fail. Right, okay. It should fail actually. So if you can see, it is saying no. Okay. You are not allowed. Why we are not allowed? Because we haven't mapped this role to this user till now. Okay. So let's go and create this role binding as well. Okay, so let's apply -f role binding dot yaml. Okay, now let's get oc get role binding -and dev. Okay, so this role binding is also created. Okay, and let's describe this. Say describe. Okay, so as you can see, so the role it is referring to is the pod reader role. Okay, and user is mapped to dev user. So now uh, our role is defined on this user. So if I check again, I should be able to do a uh, get on the pods, right? Because we have given this get access to this dev user. Okay, you can see now it is coming as yes. Okay, right? So if I describe, just to show you, also describe roles hyphen and dev or reader, you can see I can get, watch and list. Okay, so if I can do get pods, watch pods, right, and list pods, I can do that. Okay, let's say if can I delete the pods or not? Okay, because right now it's not defined in the verbs, right? So can I delete the pod? No, I cannot delete because this is not allowed. You can see, right? So I can run only these commands uh, under the dev namespace for this dev user. Okay. Okay, I hope this is clear. Okay, and how you logged in with this dev user, and I mean, how can you verify all these things? So for that, I have already created a user. I mean, already created a video that tells you how you create a user in Ubuntu and how you map that user in the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, how you create the kubeconfig files for that user. There is another video. Maybe I will share the link of that video in this video under description, so you can go through that. Okay, so I'm not going to create all those things because that will require more time. So we are just checking. This is an easy command because admin, I mean, non-admin don't need to, I mean, log into that user, right? I mean, he can directly check. So all these tasks are created by the admin. Okay, just remember this. So RBAC is admin scope, okay? Normal user cannot create it. So let's do one thing right now. We have given only three permission, right? Let's give the whole permission. Okay, so OC delete a role, so delete -f role. Okay, let's delete this YAML vim role dot YAML and let me give here a star. Okay, so let me allow everything. Okay, and okay, these are some of the verbs list. Okay, uh, just to let you know, get, list, watch, create, delete, patch, update. So these are some of the verbs that we define. Okay, OC apply -f role dot YAML. Okay, so the role is created. OC get role and dev pod reader. Okay, so let's describe this now. So describe. So as you can see, all the verbs are allowed. Okay, there is a star. Okay, so if I check now whether I can delete, oh sorry, my bad. I deleted the role. Let me reapply. Okay, so as you can see, all the verbs are allowed, right? So if I can do a, whether I can delete the pod under the dev namespace with dev user. So it is saying yes, you can. You have the access. Okay. So this proves basically that all the verbs are allowed. Okay. So if you want, I can check some of the other verbs as well. Maybe patch. See, patch also I can do. Okay. So I can do all the verbs. Okay, that are available with this star command. Okay. So this is how you define the role and role bandings, okay, for a particular user. And as I mentioned, how you create a user and use this permission, right? So for that, there is another video, so you can go through that. Okay, now let's go for the cluster role. Now let's see what's under the cluster role YAML file. Okay, so the kind is cluster role. Okay, so the name is node reader. So we are giving a sorry, so we are giving the read only access, so that's why the name is node reader. Okay, so the resources we are giving the nodes, right? So on the node, what are the permission you can, I mean, the user can get, and the user can list the nodes. Okay, you cannot do anything else. Okay, so let's apply this cluster role.yaml. Okay, it is created. Okay, so now where this cluster role will be created, as I told, this is a cluster wide, right? So it won't be under any namespace. Okay, so it will be uh, cluster wide. Okay, so I need to get OC cluster role. Okay, and then I will grab for admin because there will be default uh, roles, right? Cluster roles. So there will be a lot of data. Okay, so as you can see, so this is the cluster role created. Okay, OC described cluster role node. OC describe cluster role node reader cluster role. Okay, spelling mistake. Cluster. Okay, so as you can see, the cluster role is created. Okay, and this is a cluster wide. Okay, so resources are nodes, so the user can work on the nodes and he can only run these commands. Okay, so now let's see what's inside the cluster role binding. Now we need to map this permission to a particular user. Okay, so under role or cluster role, we defined what are the permission, okay, what he can do, and on what resources he can do. So there were three tasks that we discussed, right? Who can access what resources and what action. So role defines these two parameters, what resources and what action he can perform. Okay, and cluster role or binding or role binding, they define who can access. Okay, so now with the cluster role binding, we will define who will be the user. Okay, to do this task. So this is the YAML file for cluster role binding. As you can see, the name is node reader binding. Okay, and here we are defining under the kind the user. The user will be admin user. Okay, and now again we have to map that cluster role, right, that we created. So that will come under this role ref. So kind will be cluster role and name is node reader. Okay, so this is the cluster role that we created. So let's apply this and see cluster role binding. Yeah, it is created. OC cat cluster role binding grep grep node reader. Okay, so yeah, it is created. So let's describe this quickly. Describe. Okay. So it says that okay, the permission are defined under this cluster role, that is node reader, and the user which is mapped of to this cluster role is admin user. Okay, so this is created. Now let's verify this. Okay, so we can verify with the same command. So let's do this. Kubectl auth, can I get nodes as admin user? So can I list the nodes as admin user? So it says yes, you can do it. So there is a warning message as well. So it says that node is not a namespace scoped. Okay, so yeah, we know that node is not namespace, right? So this is a cluster wide resource. Okay, so can I delete nodes? No. Why? Because uh, it is not allowed, right? If I do a cat, I haven't defined it, right? So I can only do a cat get and list. So if I do a get list also I can do, but I cannot do delete. Why? As I mentioned, right? So in the verbs, this action is not permitted. So this is how you limit the access to a particular resource, okay, like pod or nodes, namespace, services, right? So, and you also define under that resource which command he can execute, right? So there is a second level of you can say access that you can give him, right? So you can limit the access basically. So now let's do one thing. Let's give all the access to this user, okay, under the cluster role. So let me first delete this, and I will cluster role edit this. Okay, so let me give all access. I will give star. Okay. So star means give all the access. OC apply hyphen f cluster role dot YAML. Okay. Sorry. OC. Yeah, it is created. Now if I see whether I can authenticate to delete the nodes, so you can see yes. Okay. Why? Because we have allowed all the verbs. OC get. Okay, let me describe it. See, describe cluster role node reader. Okay, we have defined a star verb. So everything is allowed for the node's resource. Okay, so on the node, this user can perform all the action. Okay, right? This admin user, this cluster role. Okay, so I hope it is clear how we define how can we use this RBAC to limit the access, right? Please refer to my other videos how you can I mean we didn't log into the users, right, to check. So how this RBAC will work for a particular user. Once you create, there is a kube config file that needs to be created, and you need to share it to the particular users, right? So that they will be able to log into the cluster. So all these things, there is another video, so you can check my video. I will give the link to that video in the description. Okay. So I hope this video is helpful to understand RBAC. So see you into the next video. Okay, bye. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Bye.